And hi again, everyone. We welcome you to the WKYC and WKYC.com High School Football Game of the Week preview show. Along with Tyler Carey, I'm Dave Dino DeNatale. We are headed towards week number 2 of the high school football playoff postseason, and we are set to give you the announcement where we are going Friday night. And again, this is one of those times where we're going to see two teams that in the now basically 3 seasons of the game of the week, we've not covered either of these teams. And, one I would have expected us to have covered in the playoffs, a playoff caliber team. And one is a Cinderella, Tyler.
Yes, Dino, I have to say, I didn't think we'd be covering this team at all. But after what happened last week, we were kind of forced. I don't want to say forced into it, but it's certainly a lot more intriguing to see them in our game of the week. This week, we will be headed to Lorain County to watch the North Royalton Bears take on the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. Now, Olmsted Falls, a team that we are accustomed to seeing in the postseason, very much a contender in Lorain County against teams like Avon Lake. They always give them a good fight. North Royalton, this is their first time in the playoffs in 8 years. They have not won a playoff game in 8 years. The only reason they are in the playoffs this year is because of the expanded brackets because of COVID-19. They were 0-6, but last week, in the first round, they pulled up what has to be the upset of the year in Northeast Ohio so far, going to Amherst and beating the Steel Comets 48-45 in triple overtime.
We were monitoring that game as we were signing off from Brunswick, and there has to be some good that comes from all of this. This has been such a rough year for everybody, and trying to adjust to COVID in the schools, whether or not you're in classes or you're doing hybrid learning. For these kids and these coaches, it has been so incredibly difficult. We didn't even know if we were going to have a season, frankly, really even in early August, and now here we are. There's got to be some good that comes of it, and the fact that the doors were open for everybody to have an opportunity to participate in the postseason, I love it. I have an affinity for Lorain County. I love Amherst, but I felt so good for the Bears, for Nick Chaluli and his staff to get that win last week, and I think this is great. By the way, just because I know some geography honks will yell at us, O Falls actually is still in Cuyahoga County. It's right on kind of that Cuyahoga-Lorain border. But I don't want any trolls that come out and say, no, you're wrong. Okay.
Look, they play Avon Lake, Amherst, all those. I think they're in Lorain County. In my mind, but so yeah, my apologies.
For a long time. Oh yeah.
Yes.
They may as well be, but they're so close. But yeah, they're actually in Cuyahoga County, and the Bulldogs, Tyler, are just a team that if they're not in the playoffs, I mean they're right there every single year, and they've had a great rivalry with Avon Lake for a long time. Now with Avon, since they were all in the Southwest Conference there for a long time. It's just they're always an elite program, and maybe we don't talk about them enough, but here they are now. They get the bye week, and they're going to get an opportunity to be home and to maybe start a playoff run.
Absolutely, and yet they do kind of get overshadowed a bit, but we know, just covering this area for years, you a lot longer than me, we know how good they are. They can definitely put up a lot of points. That is the case as well this year. They have a great running game, a lot of backs who can do some damage. Andrew Darkowski is one of their top running backs that has carried the rock a lot this year. Their problem in years past and this year as well is that they kind of end up playing second fiddle or even third fiddle to Avon or Avon Lake. They lost 2 games this year. One was a heartbreaker to Avon. They only lost by 3. There's no shame in that, even though you want to win that game. And then the second loss, they had blowout wins, and throughout their 4 victories, Season finale, they get blown out by Avon Lake. Now, I don't know how much stock you want to read into that because we mentioned how week 6 was kind of a mulligan for a bunch of teams because they already knew where they were going to be seated. Right. It was just, let's get through this healthy so when we get into the playoffs, we know where we stand and then we can go on a run. But you do kind of feel at times that it's Avon and Avon Lake, and then Olmsted Falls is trying to knock on the door, but they just can't get there. If they're going to get there, it's likely, if they're going to go on that run, it's likely they're going to have to go through those teams again.
Right.
And it's going to have to start against a team like North Royalton, taking care of business and not letting happen to them what happened to Amherst last week.
Yeah, you want a shot at Hoban or Massillon or one of those top-tier Division II teams, you got to go through Avon and Avon Lake to get to the other side of the bracket. And you may have to beat them both to get to that side of the bracket, the regional final, to have an opportunity, or maybe even a state semifinal, to get over to where you would get the chance to match up against an elite team. Before we get to this week's schedule, because you just got done at WKYC.com putting together this week 2 playoff schedule, just kind of to put a bow on our game last week. Boy, oh boy, I felt so good for leaving Brunswick Automart Stadium last Friday. And that environment in Brunswick to see the Blue Devils pick up that win. They got tested early by Jackson, especially it was nip and tuck really into that midway to late part of the second quarter. And then the Blue Devils really executed on turnovers and converted them to scores. But I really like what I saw from Brunswick. They really, from week 2 of the regular season to essentially week 7, 5 weeks after we saw them, they made improvements. I'm not saying they're going to beat McKinley Friday night because I think they would be the underdogs in that game, especially on the road. I am saying I think they're equipped to keep up with the Bulldogs, especially with their defense and their ability to control the clock in games. They're going to have to throw the football, and I think Ethan Fritz has done better as a quarterback, as a throwing quarterback in the last couple weeks. But I think the Blue Devils can hang with the Bulldogs. I really do.
I'm with you, and I would not be shocked at all if they ended up winning this game. Now, I do think that Canton McKinley is clearly the favorite at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium with a little bit more of that Division I talent. But Brunswick's confidence level is sky high right now. I mean, we talked about – we've used that word for weeks, Renaissance season. That was their first playoff win in 12 years, Dino. It had been a long time for what we all consider one of the premier public school programs in Northeast Ohio. They've gotten some very impressive wins, and Jackson is a good program. The 2-4 record is a little bit deceiving because they had some very close losses. And that 42-28 score last week, the final score, I thought was deceiving as well because beyond the 7-7 tie early, I thought Brunswick was in control of that game all night. We never really felt like they were going to lose. And Jackson got a couple of touchdowns late to make it closer than it seemed. But this is a Brunswick team that, especially in the trenches, can play with the best of them. If they can get off the line and push McKinley back just like they did with Jackson last week, I really think they have a chance to pull off the upset and possibly earn a date with Menor in the 3rd round. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to end up beating Menor. They did get blown out by Menor earlier in the season. But to win the playoff game last week, and if they were to do it again this week against a team like Canton McKinley, you talk about resurrecting a program, that would really silence any naysayers that are left, I think, and really put Brunswick back where they belong among Northeast Ohio's elite in high school football.
Yeah, I think about the term Jim Donovan used when the Browns beat the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, a signature win. Yep. I think, you beat Canton McKinley at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. That's a signature win. Can they do it? Yeah, I think they can, but it's going to take a maximum effort, especially on the offensive side. So that's one of the games this coming Friday and this weekend in high school football. You've got the screen ready to share. I'm looking forward to some of these other matchups. There were I think 3 or 4 games that we were really looking closely at as we were trying to pick our game of the week, and I think that we're in for some good ones this weekend.
Yeah, there's a lot of good matchups Friday and Saturday night. A lot of all local matchups Friday and Saturday night. I'm just going to share the screen here. Get us ready. And there we are.
There we go. There we go.
The big list.
There we go.
We'll start with Division I, Region 1. All of these matchups are all local matchups. Interesting, Dino, all of the higher seeds won their first-round games last week. There were no upsets, so it's as if we're in the conventional status of 1 through 8 make the playoffs.
Yeah. This looks like the first weekend in November, what we would see in a bracket. Yeah,
a little bit of normalcy, thank goodness, in this crazy time. Medina taking on top-seeded St. Edward that will be in Lakewood. St. Ignatius and Euclid in Euclid. I'm very interested to see what happens in that game. Ignatius really just laid the wood to Solon last week. Stowe Monroe Falls and Mentor. I do think that Mentor is probably the better team decisively, but Stowe has, with that 5-1 record, is certainly impressed, and they had a very, very good win against Cleveland Heights in the first round. And then, as we mentioned already, Brunswick and Kent McKinley at Tom Benson Stadium.
I'm double checking on something, TC. I thought I saw, and I think this is right here. I'm going to find out here for a second. They're actually playing that St. Edward Medina game. I don't know. It's at a neutral site. They're playing it at Elyria. They're playing it at Mercy Field at Ely Stadium, not at the home of the Eagles at Lakewood Stadium. I have no idea why.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be in Lakewood, which is very strange because how they've got it set up, as you pointed out last week, you can get all the way to the regional final before you start having neutral sites.
Yes, and I believe that is to try to cut down on some of the travel, try to limit their interactions in different stadiums during this pandemic. It is interesting why they are playing that game in Elyria. It's not that far from Lakewood, so I'm sure they have their reasons. But, yes, all the other games will be at their normal home stadiums, and it's already going to feel like a home atmosphere for St. Edward regardless. All right, Division II, Region 5. We get a few more. Go right down here. A lot of all local matchups. You see, and this is where the brackets were really expanded. Remember, Divisions 2 through 7 have more teams in Division 1. And a lot of these top teams did not play last week. They were on byes. Archbishop Hoban is going to get their first playoff showdown of the year. They're going to play Kent Roosevelt. We're really interested in this game right here, the Nordonia-Mayfield game. I believe that was on our short list.
It was.
Willoughby South and Benedictine. Benedictine, the 4 seed, despite just a 2-4 record. They have lost to some very tough teams, though. Walsh Jesuit having a very nice year. They're the 5 seed. They'll host Garfield Heights, who got their first win. Twinsburg, the Tigers, winning their first playoff game in 10 years. I know it was against Brush. I know they're still 1-4. They're going to play Austintown Fitch. Maple Heights headed to Warren. And then the last all-local matchup is Bedford and Hudson. Hudson, of course, has come into the postseason on a roll at 6-0. And Paynesville Riverside, who we also saw earlier in the year, they're going to host Boardman, Dino.
Yeah, we looked very closely at Mayfield Nordonia. When I was at Nordonia 2 weeks ago, a lot of the Wildcat people were talking about, they were really looking forward to a matchup with Mayfield. They're very close to each other. They usually play each other in a normal season. A lot of times, one of the first 3 games of the year in a non-conference setting, that's a matchup that tends to happen quite often. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But I'm with you. I look at, I want to see how Walsh Jesuit does. They're having a great year. And also Riverside, they had the one kind of hiccup against Chardon. But other than that, the Beavers are having a terrific year for Dave Force.
Luckily, they won't have to face Chardon again. However, as we know, if they want to get to the promised land, they're going to have to go through the Knights of Archbishop Hoban. And that is always a very, very difficult task.
Indeed.
All right, let's go to Region 6. Now, I do want to note, one local team you are not going to see on this list is Avon. The reason for that, the Eagles were supposed to host North Olmsted this week in Avon. North Olmsted, unfortunately, has a potential outbreak of COVID-19 within the team. So knowing that they were going to be heavy underdogs anyway, I think they decided to cancel the rest of their season. They opted out of the game Avon will automatically advance to the third round. They will play either Fremont Ross or Highland Dino. Certainly an unfortunate situation for North Olmsted, and really just kind of brings you back to the reality of where we're at right now.
And I think Avon is trying to get an opponent because they don't want to have 2 weeks off between their last game. And I thought I saw they might be playing Perrysburg as just kind of a, it's almost like a glorified scrimmage game. Just to get themselves, ready for the next round. So keep an eye on that. But, unfortunate situation. On the flip side, TC, they've been having, we've been following the story at WKYC.com and certainly on 3 News about Willoughby South in Regions 5. Despite some of the COVID problems they've had in that district, they are going ahead, went back to practice yesterday, planning to play this weekend. So Matt Duffy and the Rebels are going to be in action, and that's certainly good news that they're able to play that game.
That's right. All the schools in the district are closed, but thankfully it does look as if the Rebels are going to be able to play. We hope nothing bad happens that would prevent that. We're just going to have to wait and see. Some of the other teams, Barberton headed to St. John's Jesuit, Brecksville in action as well. And then we already mentioned our game of the week. The other all-local matchup in this region is Wadsworth at Avon Lake. Wadsworth, we know, can put up points. I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep up with the Shoremen, though. Yeah,
especially, Wadsworth, I don't know if they'll have seen a defense as good as what the Shoremen have yet this season. So that'll be a challenge. If they can get some points early in that game, give themselves an opportunity. But other than that, it's going to be awfully tough to beat the Shoremen. They're playing so well. And, you start to look at a potential matchup. I mean, Avon Lake could play Olmsted Falls in week 3. You maybe look at a possible Highland Avon matchup, and then a possible, Barberton would have to pull off an upset, but, Brecksville would have an opportunity to move ahead. It'll be interesting. But I like the way this Region 6 is shaping out. And you know what? North Royalton could throw a monkey wrench into everything and knock off Olmsted Falls Friday night, too. Who knows?
They already threw a little bit of a monkey wrench into it when they upset Amherst last week, but I would not be shocked if they could do it again. To Region 7, one all-local matchup, Lake and North Canton Hoover. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen in that one. I think that's a very even matchup. And then other teams in action, the top teams that were on byes last week, Perry, Greene, Massillon, Washington, and Worcester. All teams that have had a history recently of going to state championship games, and I think all are very capable of doing it again.
Yeah, playoff experience is so important, now that we're getting into, where a lot of these top teams are playing. And I think that's going to really pay dividends for the Perrys and the Washingtons in this particular region.
No question. Let's head to Division 3, Region 9. Only a couple of all-local matchups. Notre Dame Cathedral Latin won their game last week. They will play Aurora, who did play Copley last week in kind of one of those tune-up games. It was certainly a big tune-up game, 2 teams with only 1 loss between them going in. You would expect the Greenmen would be favored in that one. Also, we were very interested in this matchup. West Geauga, who's had a very nice season, headed to St. Vincent St. Mary down in Akron. Of course, Chardon, the top team in Division 3, according to the AP polls. Geneva, New Philadelphia. Streetsboro's had a very good year, and then Dover and Kenston as well. Kenston, of course, taking a bit of a fall after a very nice 2-year run. But this region as well, also some very top-flight contenders that you could really see any one of them making a run.
I feel like it's picked up right where it's left off last year. Now, some of the particular teams have kind of moved, like you said, Kenston maybe not where they were the last 2 years, but they're there. But Chardon is there. New Philadelphia is there. Streetsboro is there. Aurora is there. St. Vincent St. Mary is there. It's going to take, to get out of this region, it's going to take a lot. And Chardon has been the best team in the state in Division 3 this year. If they get to the state semis, they will have earned it, because this is going to be an awfully tough region.
It's a meat grinder, just like it was last year. Aurora got out of it barely last year. I think they could do it again this year, despite being the 5 seed. I think it's anyone's game, and it's going to be very, very fun to watch. Region 10, Division 3, a lot of all local matchups here as well, including a couple that we looked at. Besides Norton headed to Tiffin, Rocky River and Padua Franciscan. That is a very, very intriguing game. West Holmes taking on a resurgent Cloverleaf Colts squad. Mansfield Senior, who went to the state title game just last year, they're going to be in Ashland trying to pull off the upset. And unbeaten Copley, a 10-seed, Dino, a 10-seed coming off a win over Aurora. They're going to have to go to Norwalk if they want to keep their season alive and if they want to win there.
Yeah, got to beat the Truckers out in Norwalk. But, I mean, listen, you know who's the most excited person about this? Betsy Kling. She's a she's a Copley grad. I like it. I like, we look very closely at Rocky River and Padua, and not surprisingly, it's going to be, a lot of attention on that game. But I wonder if experience of teams like Mansfield and Ashland, obviously something's got to give in that game, but the winner of that game, I don't care who it is, if that might be your front runner maybe in Region 10 because of experience.
Absolutely. Even with Mansfield being a lower seed, having been there last year, you feel like if they get a couple of those wins, they can get their confidence back. Division 4, Region 13, a few more local matchups. Lawrence Northwest is the top seed from this region. East Cleveland Shaw has had a very good year. They're going to be taking on Beaver Local. And then CVCA goes to Perry, who, of course, we saw earlier in the year, that one loss to Riverside. Other than that, they've run the table. Lake Catholic will head to Canton South. Chagrin Falls against Field. I really love that game, I got to tell you. And Villa Angela St. Joseph pulling a no-row last week. They get an upset win. They'll head to Youngstown for the second round.
I love that. We're going to use that term. That's a no. Whenever a team that hasn't won a game all year pulls off an upset, that's called a no-row. I did some really intriguing teams. I love the fact that Perry really got themselves straightened out. I knew they would. Their quarterback was hurt when we were out in that game. I'm not saying they would have beaten Riverside that night, but I'm not surprised. And now the news came out a couple of days ago, speaking of Perry, Matt Rosati is going to retire at the end of this year. So you talk about another reason why, Perry might be a team to watch in that region. They're going to be playing for their coach, trying to finish out on a great note. But that's a region. I don't know a whole lot about Lawrence Northwest, but that's a region that is going to be interesting because I think, you've got some traditional teams there, the Perrys, Canton South, VASJ. It's good to see also Mark Imarino getting Chagrin Falls kind of back into the playoffs and back playing some good football this year too.
Yeah, they definitely had a resurgent year, and they've been very, very fun to watch. Region 14, we're just going through it all right now. One all-local matchup, that's going to be Milan Edison headed to Keystone. Keystone's had a very good year. A lot of unbeaten teams from our neck of the woods. Bellevue unbeaten, Ontario not. They'll take on Kenton. Shelby's unbeaten. Huron's unbeaten, and Fireland's 6-1. A lot of heavy hitters here in Region 14 that could potentially make a run to the state semifinals.
Keep an eye on Keystone down in LaGrange. They had kind of earmarked this year as the year they really thought that not only could they do well in Lorain County, but that they could get themselves on a playoff run. And keep an eye on them because if they can get past Edison, and I think Edison will be a good round 2 matchup for them, but they get by Edison, I think they can take off. They've really had a terrific year.
Yeah, it all starts this weekend against a very tough Edison team. And then Region 15, 2 local squads in action. Indian Valley and Carrollton will both be on the road. Let's head to Division 5, Region 17. Really the team we've been waiting to see. They got it 2 weeks off. They're well rested. Kirtland will be taking on New Franklin Manchester, who got a nice win in the first round. Sandy Valley's in action as well. Crestwood, who got an automatic invitation to the second round because of a COVID cancellation. They'll head to Garraway. There's Lutheran East. Warrensville Heights and Beechwood. I think this is going to be a very, very good matchup to watch. Garrettsville Garfield's unbeaten with Beechwood and Kirtland, and then Southeast heads to Fairfield. Again, more heavy hitters, but I do think this is Kirtland's region to lose, Dino.
Absolutely, and this is what they've been kind of waiting for now to, they've had that time off to get everybody healthy. That was a bruising game they had to play against Solon a couple of weeks ago when we were out there. They obviously played well and they won that game, but now they have an opportunity to start a playoff run. They're going for a third in a row and sixth overall this year in state championship talk. I'm not betting against them.
No, and they certainly earned even more respect than they already had by going into Solon and just beating up on the Comets like they did. Region 18, 4 teams, Elyria Catholic, Waynedale, Orville, and West Salem Northwestern all have out-of-market games. Elyria Catholic always is the highest seed among our local teams. They always are capable of making some noise in the playoffs. Division 6.
Tough place to win, too, at KFC Field.
Absolutely. Division 6, Region 21, a lot of local matchups again, and some teams that have been sneakily good this year. Others you kind of expect to be there. St. Thomas Aquinas will head to Trinity in Garfield Heights. Columbia taking on Mogador, the Wildcats 4-1. Hillsdale against unbeaten Pymatuning Valley. They're 6-0. What a year they have had, as has Wickliffe. They're 6-0. They'll host the Smithville Smithies. By the way, Norwayne also unbeaten. Canton Central Catholic, the underdog here. They'll head to United.
Some point you sit there and you go, man, is there somebody else, another small school besides Kirtland? And it's usually been Cuyahoga Heights. Wickliffe has kind of become that. And I remember watching them when we saw them last year, just thinking, man, they've got something special going there. Not numbers, but talent and ability and great coaching. And I love to see Wickliffe do well, and I think they're going to be a team to watch. I wish I could also be at that Columbia-Mogador game because those are two good powers meeting up.
Yeah, Mogador would love to try to win some games in the postseason. Now that starting with last year, they don't have to deal with Kirtland anymore. Yes. They feel like they can hopefully get that first state title since 2002. You talk about big-time small school programs, Mogador certainly up there. Region 22, 2 local teams. Weller Crestview heads to Carey. Collins Western Reserve will go to Liberty Center. Region 23, Loudonville is in action against Centerburg. And then finally, Division 7, more all-local matchups. Norwalk St. Paul will play on Friday night. Then Plymouth will head to Dalton. South Central against Malvern. Cuyahoga Heights, a bit of a down year. They will play Lucas, the second seed. And probably the most intriguing matchup of this region is going to be Independence and Monroeville.
There it is. So you have your look at every team in our coverage area. That's
2 more at Strasburg, Franklin, and Conneton Valley as well. I forgot to mention them. They're not playing local teams, but yes.
Somebody from Strasburg would have called us out for not giving them love. So
they get Channel 3 there.
That's right. So there are all your games this week. Again, our game of the week for round 2 of the playoffs. We'll greet you from Olmsted Falls Friday night. The Bulldogs will play host to the Cinderella team of this postseason. The Bears from North Royalton will get on the air at WKYC.com, on Facebook, on YouTube, and, of course, the WKYC app starting at 6:50. TC, it is always a pleasure, my friend. We'll see you Friday night, and we'll talk again next Wednesday as we get everybody ready for the next round of the playoffs.
Can't wait, Dino. This is when it starts to get interesting. You start to see those heavy hitters, and there's always a chance for an upset. I'm really interested to see who gets their season spoiled by that upstart underdog. You hate to see it happen to a point, but you always like when the unexpected occurs.
That's right. It's what makes it fun this time of year. All right, for Tyler Carey, I'm Dave DiNatale. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's the WKYC High School Football Playoff Game of the Week Preview Show.